Choi Yeonjun from TXT, I believe, will go through tremendous change in his life every 10 years, starting from this year. And I'm going to explain what those changes are. There's going to be a significant career change at 35. There's going to be possible midlife crisis at 45. And then there's going to be a new phase of his life at 55 where he really starts to complete his true life purpose. Stick with me. Please subscribe. Please like this video. I'm going to be deep diving, analyzing his hands here in this video and uncovering a great deal. There's no doubt in my mind he would make an exceptional teacher. And there is a huge feeling of hesitancy about what he's able to achieve, his ambitions at this time in his life. And I think this is going to have some sort of knock-on effect on him in later years, specifically at 45, especially if this continues. So before I go any further, let's have a look at what we can uncover about him through his hands. Now, all I know about him, other than what I've already seen in his hands, is that he is 25. Choi Yeonjun is his name. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Please forgive me if I am. And that he is obviously a member of TXT. Now, these are the 12 hand types that I use. Not many palmists use these. It's the most comprehensive, the most accurate hand type classification method. And I'm going to tell you which one of these he is and what this means. Most people who are familiar with palmistry utilize the four elemental system, and that's fairly useful to some degree. We can get an idea as to a person's characteristics and personality. Choi Yeon-chun is an intuitive hand type. What does that mean? Well, he's a lot like V from BTS. When we look at his hand here, it kind of appears like a fire hand. It's pretty close to a fire hand. There's definitely fire in this hand. When you take a closer look and really have a look at several images, you can see that the palm is long, as are the fingers. And that thumb is always turned in, which shows that his ambitions are in some way blocked. And I mean, every single image I found, and not just images where paparazzi have been taking photographs or whatever, but even images where he's taking pictures of himself. I don't have the picture here, but there's a picture that he's taken of himself on social media, and he's posted it, and he's just on his own at the beach. And he really needs his own privacy, his own space. But even in that environment, he's still feeling hesitant. He's still feeling like his ambitions are blocked. So this is not just some kind of unconscious gesture. So I'm going to keep coming back to this a little bit, but just to kind of reiterate here, there's a lot of water in his hands. He is an intuitive hand type. He's a lot like V from BTS because he's similar. He's got this intuitive hand type. He's got this way about explaining himself and breaking down information. And he's very quick-witted. He's very sharp-tongued as well. He's very quick in his response. He's probably very funny with it as well. And I imagine he's an exceptional teacher. Choi Yeon-chun would make he would make an exceptional teacher, a great mentor and advisor to others, and probably a very compassionate kind of counselor. Actually, very similar to V, very intuitive, very strong in feeling and emotion. And the reasons for that are very simply because he is predominantly water, but there is also fire in his hands as well. So this is our detective corkboard here. We're going to keep coming back to this and building on what we have. He's an intuitive hand type, which means he's extremely sensitive. He is empathetic, sympathetic. He is introspective. He's very creative. He's very artistic. He's very sensitive. He's very emotional. Um, he's probably a bit of a book lover. I think that's probably more yet to come in later years. But he is certainly an animal lover, and he's definitely a little bit psychic. He's very dominated by the moon and his own dreams, his subconscious, his abstract, his imagination. All these aspects about him very, very strong. He's very ruled by the water in his hands. Fire aspect is kind of secondary nature. What do these both have in common? They are fluid, They are in constant flux. They are opposite to each other, which creates a sense of duality about him, adds extra layers of complexity to his character. But what they both have in common is their ability to feel. Fire is very passionate. Water is um, very emotional. And so he is highly emotionally intelligent, a lot like V as well from BTS. But they are both constantly in flux. They're both very adaptable, very flexible, and have a tremendous capacity to feel. So he's very passionate, but he's also very inspired. He probably breaks down when he hears a tremendous piece of music or, is inspired by art in some way. So he's probably a very complex person in this way. We have looked at the fact that his true purpose is blocked. He's not able to action his um, desire, his ideas, and will. That's what these represent. Venus is desire, ideas, thought, logic, reasoning, and will, determination, drive, the ability to action these things. So there's a blockage here. So let's look at this change every 10 years theory. Now, where he is in his life right now, and this is probably the best image I've got, um, what we can see is, interestingly, right, so you have here this tremendous ambition line, and it rises away from the lifeline where it's joined to the headline, and it kind of creates something of an intersection here, where it veers away from what this is doing here is his own ambition is quite literally forcing him into independence. And I find it really interesting because it occurs at the age of probably about 16, 17. So that's the first tremendous year of change in his life. Not exactly 10 years ago, but it's still quite relevant. When you look at all of his fingers, at the second phalanx here, at all of the fingers, they're very sort of wasted, pinched in. Now, this is always a sign of someone who has feelings about neglect about their childhood. He feels as though he missed out in some way. And it's often a sign of someone who has had many brothers and sisters, someone who has had to become an adult before their time and just be very responsible at a very young age. So this, in a way, probably sort of forced him to start thinking about his future at a young age. Also, and this is very interesting. I mean, Mercury here, I'll just make on a side note, he is a really private person and really needs his privacy and expresses himself in isolation, and his personal boundaries really need to be respected. But check this out. Now, what we see is corroboratory evidence. I'm not even sure if that's a word. But check out the fate line. It begins tremendously low. On the right hand represents all that is external, environmental, physical, practical, material. It's all that is in our lives in an external way. Now, the fact that it begins so low down on the hand in Neptune, it shows again he was tremendously independent at a very early age and in quite practical environmental way. So what we're seeing here is that this ambition to become and change who he is in quite um, an internal way here. The fact that this ambition line is rising and reaching within as well as upwards and out and into quite a strong sense of um, driven ambition and really not only is it enriching his sense of self, his ego, but also what he wants to do with his life. And it's kind of got this like V-like formation here. And what's happening here is that it's forcing him to become independent. Where the life and the headline break away from each other is the time in which a person becomes independent. Now, it hugs the Venus mount very tightly, so it's showing that whilst he claimed his independence when he was young, he has always walked a very familiar path. He's never strayed away, he's never experimented all that much, he's not done silly things all that much. And again, that's probably because of his upbringing, because he was showed a very sensible road. He's a very sensible person. He's so ambitious that he's prioritizing his career is it's just one of his principles. He's ambitious. That's one of his principles. So his fate line here, coming from Neptune as well, is also showing a destiny rooted in engaging, captivating an audience, hypnotizing an audience. That is his destiny. So it begins very, very young, and he is working very, very hard to make this happen. Now, at the age of 25, notice there is an overlapping fate line. So what we're seeing here is that at his age in his life right now, he's going through a tremendous stage of change. And his career is changing right now in his life. He's going through a tremendous stage of change. And what we see again, where the fate line moved away from the headline at the age of 35, again, there is tremendous change. And again, this is in an area that is relating to public recognition, art, and the creative industries. So he's going to rise in his status, achieve a new level of fame in 10 years' time. And it might be that he gets into movies or, he makes his kind of debut in some way in another artistic or creative area, industry. But what's going to happen at 45? And why do I think this? There's two reasons. Firstly, look at the fate line. At the age of 45, we can quite clearly, well, maybe not clearly, but we can see it veering off to away towards Jupiter. Again, the sense of the self, ambition, pride, ego, judgment, authority, expertise. He's actually quite literally looking, turning inwards towards a new. He's becoming introspective at this time. What's the need to look within? Often, the desire, the need to look within is because we're not getting what we feel we need, or fulfillment, satisfaction. We're not feeling like we're fulfilling our purpose, and that's when we start looking within. Often, it's when we go through, we experience loss, grief in some way. Often it's when we are at a kind of crossroads in life, we start looking within. Often we turn to spiritual paths when we experience grief. So also look at this. The lifeline, we can quite clearly see at the age of 45 here, it really just sort of fades and becomes very unclear here as to what exactly is happening, what's going on. I feel there's something that occurs at the age of 45 for him that, or at least this is written in the stars as well as his hands, that creates an obstacle and a moment of struggle or grief or loss here. There's 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 a hurdle for him in his life that makes him look within, that makes him question, and probably triggers some sort of midlife crisis. Also, on another note, check out this ambition. This isn't an ambition line, sorry. This is an effort line. Look at this. This corroborates what I was saying earlier. Look at 35. And again, it's rising towards Apollo. He's really going to make some serious gains at 35. So yeah, sorry, I reiterate, I digress. He is going to go through a stage of reassessing, kind of evaluation of himself at the age of 45, and I believe this is most likely a midlife crisis triggered by some kind of grief or loss or unexpected, unforeseen hurdle in his life. Again, there's going to be another change at 55. Before I get on to that, I want to talk about his heartline. I'm going to talk about his headline as well, because his heartline here really, to me, spells out the I've talked about his purpose. I've talked about his passion being blocked, his will being blocked here. That's funny how that word just came up for me. Passion being blocked. He's a very passionate person, and I feel like his heartline here shows the story of a person who is on a course towards his desire here is to really find that true one, find the one. He kind of lives a sort of a fairy tale idea of romance. He's a dreamer, a big time dreamer, a lot like V again from BTS. His heartline here rises up right up on top of Jupiter here. He's hugely idealistic to the point where he probably becomes massively disappointed when he becomes hurt because he puts people on a pedestal, and then when they disappoint him, it really hurts him. And he should never really have put them. in such high regard in the first place. So he's massively idealistic, and this is just who he is. And he's not going to marry out of, equal status or anything like that. He doesn't care about anything like that. He's looking for love, and probably in some of the wrong places as well. Now, his headline here is quite remarkable. And again, this backs up what I'm saying at 45 as well. Look at the trajectory of it. And at this age of, and I don't really like to time things on the headline or heartline, in fact, it's just not that reliable. But with everything else we've seen here, I think it's fairly um, accurate to say or conclude that at 45, things really take a turn for the worse in terms of his uh, mental point of view, because it really snow dives, I was gonna say. It snowballs, maybe that's where my subconscious mind was going. I wonder why. Things things take a cold turn, and that's because things really escalate out of control in a way that he starts thinking these really, unrealistic thoughts, dark thoughts. He becomes very depressed at this time. And this again is all because he is so rooted in his deep imagination. He's so ruled by the moon, by water. The tides themselves are ruled by the moon, and it's all about out of his control. The way that he feels, the way in which he acts on those is all that he has in his control, and yet he feels out of control at the moment. He doesn't quite have the control over his life. So if this continues, this is what I believe causes his midlife crisis. If he has people around him that are in some way preventing him, or if he feels that his career is in some way preventing his true life purpose, this is going to trigger something within him. And I think it's not going to take too much to make him become depressed. So I think there is an overall event in his life at this age in his life, 45, where it kind of it starts that snowball, and it just spirals out of control. But the good news is at 55, I believe things take a tremendous change for the better. We can see here the fate line really kind of starts to reignite from what looks like a sort of a secondary heart line here, and it's pretty blurry. Best image I've got. But I do feel strongly about his success really reigniting at 55. So I think he's going to go through a phase of isolation for maybe 10 years or so from 45 onwards to really reassess. And, it's like an introspective stage in his life where he learns to love himself again. And then he's going to kind of re-emerge. He's going to rise from the ashes, as it were, in terms of his career. He's going to be back on the scene in terms of, the creative industries that, um, as far as they're concerned, he's going to, I believe, be a sort of a teacher, mentor role. And I actually think that is his purpose in life. And I'm not really sure he understands that at the moment, or if it's even possible for him at his um, the current stage that he is in his life right now. That is where he's going to find fulfillment, satisfaction. And, not only that, he's going to be good at it. People are really going to benefit from his influence, his resources as well. I think he's going to make a hugely tremendous, um, powerful and positive impact on the world by mentoring others in the creative industries. I think he's going to be hugely um, charitable, philanthropic. He's probably going to start up um, you know, some kind of charity or organization that really um, kickstarts kind of grassroots movements and allows people, in impoverished positions potentially, or just people like himself when he was young to really to get what he didn't have when he was young. He's going to turn into a mentor kind of role at the age of 55. That is my prediction. That is my palm reading for Choi Yeonjun. Thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe. Please do let me know your thoughts on this palm reading. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like, please subscribe, share it with everyone. Please do book a palm reading with me if you have enjoyed this video, and I shall see you next Sunday. Let me know your thoughts on this video, and let me know who you would like me to read the hands of next week. I'm considering just reading, in fact, every member of TXT from here in. See you next Sunday.